Hello, homeschoolers. Okay, I'm riding the wave of math success stories in our homeschool. This week on subandsistershomeschool.com, we have a week dedicated to elementary students, and we are just now beginning to release some curriculum products that are aimed at the elementary grades. So we've been reminiscing and thinking back to when our kids were younger, because none of us have adorable little ones anymore. We all have those on the high school end and older. So as I think back, I was thinking of what were some of those moments where I went, oh, wow, homeschooling really does work. And one of them, strangely enough, is a math memory for me. Now, if you know me, you know that math is not my strong suit, never has been. And it was one of the things that I worried about with homeschooling. How on earth am I going to teach my children math? I stink at it. If you haven't seen my video journal entry from the other day about linear equations and cookies, well, then you've missed out. You'll need to click on that one because it's fun. That's a recent homeschool math success story in our house, and I was very delighted by it. This is from a long time ago. I had one kid who just really struggled with the concept of place value when we were working with decimals for the first time and trying to really understand the idea of moving into smaller and smaller decimal places. And everyone would talk about using money as a great kinesthetic tool, to have a dollar and then a dime and then a penny, and explain how they would illustrate place value. But for this particular child, that just wasn't getting it. I don't know exactly why, but the concept that these were pieces of a whole just wasn't connecting for him. And so what I ended up doing was one of those crazy things where it was just a God inspiration to give this child a different way to get a hold of the concept. He could manipulate the steps if I gave him the steps, but he couldn't get the concept. So what we did was this. I took pieces of paper. These are purple because purple is wonderful. I don't actually recall what color they were back in the day because we're talking a lot of years ago. But I took pieces of paper that were all the same size, and we agreed that they were all the same size, and we counted 10 of them. We took those 10, and we put them in a trusty Ziploc bag. Now that they were in the Ziploc bag, we had a group of 10, right? But it was in, oops, it was 10 in one. I could turn it upside down, and they wouldn't dump out. See that? Isn't that tricky? This is not a commercial for any particular brand of zipper bags. We made a whole bunch of these. Then we had groups of 10, each in an individual little Ziploc bag. So now what we did is we got the gallon size bag, and we opened it up. Sorry, I'm very easily amused. And we dropped 10 of these bags into the big bag. You get the idea, right? For you, this is obvious, this is easy. For my child, this was revolutionary. And once we had a bag full of bags, each full of 10 pieces of identical paper, we were starting on the concept of place value. But really, doing this is not all that different from manipulating pennies and dimes and dollars. Where this kid got stuck conceptually was, what do you do with something smaller than a penny? What do you do when you have to get beyond the hundredths place? See, he could go up, but he couldn't conceptually go down. He would get stuck at hundredths because what do you do with a penny? A penny is as small as it gets. He was someone who really needed to physically manipulate the pieces around, and that's why this worked. Once we realized that the pattern was starting to make sense to him, then we took our original baggie out with our 10 purple pieces of paper in it, and we took out one of the pieces of paper. And we said, all right, that's one piece of paper, but we can cut it into 10 if we want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each of those cut in half. We end up with 10 little pieces. This was a tenth of a penny in his mind. He couldn't do that tenth of a penny. What if we could cut a penny in 10? We had to physically cut it. Now we had all of these, and if we wanted to, if he needed to, he could cut those into 10 teeny tiny little pieces. And now he could get the idea that Even if the pieces got too small to physically handle with scissors and his fingers, the idea was there that if you had amazing cool tools and a microscope, you could keep cutting it into tenths and into tenths and into tenths. So for my kid who was conceptually challenged when it came to place value in math and the idea of anything smaller than hundredths, we found pieces of paper, little Ziploc bags, big Ziploc bags, and a pair of scissors to be extremely helpful. Looking back on it, it's one of those warm and fuzzy homeschool moments, because this was with my oldest child and I still had a lot of doubts about myself and about whether I could teach him subject areas that did not come naturally to me. Math did not come naturally. But this is where God is so good. It all comes naturally to him. He understands every bit of it, and he understands our children so much better than we do. So when you hit one of those moments, think about my warm, fuzzy homeschool memory. Maybe the place value thing will work for you if you have a kid who's struggling with the concept of place value. Maybe it's not that at all, but maybe it'll be some other moment where you think, I don't know how to explain this. I don't even understand why my child doesn't get it. I just don't have the training or resources to know what to do with this. Then remember who made your kid. God's got all the resources necessary for homeschooling, even when you get to a tough spot. So pray, take a deep breath, and trust him. I'm working on doing it more every day. What are you working on?